Hi everyone, my name is Lynn and I'm the co-president of the Taiwanese American Students Association.
Hi, my name is Bella Kim. I'm a sophomore at UNC.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Zhang and I am a member of the Chinese Undergraduate Student Association. So usually we'll have a sort of potluck with our family and our family friends. So usually the weekend before, my family will invite other families and their parents to come to our house and prepare mooncakes. So my mom usually makes some from home. I actually have no idea how they're made, but I just know that we see a lot of aunties and uncles show up at our house on Saturday before Mid-Autumn Festival, and they prepare tons of them. And then the following weekend, we'll all get together for a big potluck and eat a lot of good food together and celebrate at the end of the night by eating a lot of mooncake.
Um, as a child, I remember it mainly being very food centric. So all the women in my extended family would get together to prepare a feast with like plates and plates of traditional Korean foods that were set on these low tables that would like come up to your knees. It's like the kind where you sit on the floor when you go to like traditional Japanese seafood restaurants. And they would put all these tables together, and the feast would stretch like across the entire living room. Um, Other than the mountains of food, I also remember that before the big feast, me and my sisters would get into our traditional hanbok dresses, and we would bow before the table with the rest of my family as thanks to our ancestors for another season of successful harvest. Obviously, in the 2000s, when we celebrated this, we didn't celebrate it for harvest, it was just to give thanks. But like years ago, this was like when Korea had a very agricultural society, like that's how you thanked your ancestors. Um, Another big thing was that the next morning after Chuseok, all of us would participate in another custom called Seongmyo. And this is where we visited our ancestral graves to remove any weeds that had grown around the graves, and that was another way to just pay respect to the deceased. So over the whole 3 days that we celebrated Chuseok, um, I just remember like with my dad having four older siblings and my mom having two older siblings, and all of them with children of their own, Chuseok was always a huge party where all of us crowded into one apartment of one of my uncles, and the environment was like always filled with noise and festive energy. Yeah.
Um, so I think the most recent one is like people in our neighborhood. We go out with lanterns and then we just like, well, I don't do this anymore. I'm too old for it. But I see other kids parading around with the lanterns. I was actually an MC for like the neighborhood thing we had, and I was the Chukoi. That's like the man in the moon, according to like the Vietnamese legend. And like my sister was Hang, which was like the woman female character. And then we were just like hosting game shows and stuff for like the little children around the area, and it was super nice. And then we also eat mooncakes, which I really like.
For special foods that we prepare during this time, a big one is obviously mooncakes. Their round shapes remind us of unity, and so we always make sure that we eat them and we talk about the stories and the origins of the mooncake.
Songpyeon was like an absolute must. It's a rice cake that's made with these like finely ground new rice, and it can be filled with like sesame seeds or chestnuts or red beans or anything else that you want. And then it's like kneaded into these small uh, balls before it's steamed. Um, Traditional liquors were also really common, but it was only consumed in small amounts with your family. You're not like trying to get drunk at this party. um, Another common one was chon, which was another essential, and it's basically just fish or meat or vegetables that are lightly fried with in a batter of flour and eggs.
So my parents are from Taiwan, and the way that they celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival growing up was grilling with their family, also eating mooncakes, and just spending time cooking, kind of just like how we do here, but I'm sure it's a lot more hectic there because there's so much more family to celebrate with.
So in Vietnam, a long time ago, it was mainly a land of farmers. So during the harvest season, they'd work really hard to make food for their villages and other villages around them. So when like Mid-Autumn Festival came around, that was a time when the harvest season was over, and that's the time that families could spend time with their children. That's why it's a holiday dedicated to children and families in general. It's a time that they can spend time together after a long season of working really hard. And I also know that the reason why it's the Lunar New Year is because usually there's a full moon in the sky, and a full moon represents like a fullness of life and prosperity in life. Well, I assume that in Vietnam, they probably celebrated it within their villages with like those small parades where they probably take their lanterns and then walk around the villages with the other children. I think today it's more also celebrating children, but in a different way since now they can, sing and dance and stuff, and we can have like actual events like catered to them and more activities. I think that it's pretty much the same, but just a little bit more modernized.
I think that's a really good question. I wouldn't be able to speak on it for other people, but I think for me, Mid Autumn Festival just used to be this thing where it's like, okay, it's like time and we get the house ready and we cook, we celebrate it. Whereas now that I'm in college and my siblings is graduated, um, it's even more special because it's like a time where we set aside and we make sure that we always come home to celebrate it.